Commander Ritak stood on the bridge of his warship, gazing at the stars through the massive viewing screen. His scaled skin gleamed under the dim purple lights as he flexed his clawed hands. The Vraxian fleet stretched before him, 50 warships ready for the hunt. "Commander, we have the coordinates from High Command," said Officer Drek. "The new prey species is located in what they call the solar system, specifically the third planet." Ritak nodded, his yellow eyes narrowing. The Vraxians had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years. As apex predators, they considered it their right, even their duty, to hunt lesser species. Their biology demanded it. Their culture celebrated it. Their empire was built on the bones of 100 civilizations that had been devoured, literally and figuratively. "Tell me about this new prey," Ritak ordered, taking his command seat. The chair adjusted to accommodate his 7-foot frame and powerful tail. Officer Drek displayed images on the main screen. "They call themselves humans. Bipedal mammals. No natural armor. No claws. Physically weaker than even the Gelteri we hunted to extinction last cycle. They've only achieved space travel in the last century." Ritak studied the images with interest. These humans looked soft, vulnerable. Their cities were densely packed, their defenses minimal compared to Vraxian standards. Yet they've survived on a planet with multiple predator species, Ritak noted, seeing images of Earth's lions, sharks, and wolves. "Curious. They use their intelligence to overcome physical limitations," said Science Officer Mev, joining the conversation. "They've developed technology at an unusually rapid rate. They were using primitive projectile weapons just 2 centuries ago. Now they have crude energy weapons and have established colonies on 2 other bodies in their system." Ritak felt the familiar hunger stirring inside him. New prey always brought excitement, but something about these humans intrigued him. The High Council considered them merely another delicacy to be sampled, their planet another territory to claim, but Ritak sensed something different about them. "The scout ship we sent 3 lunar cycles ago has returned," Officer Drek announced. "It appears damaged." Ritak frowned. "Damaged? By what? Show me." The viewing screen shifted to the docking bay where the scout ship was limping in. Its hull showed signs of weapons fire, and one engine was clearly malfunctioning. "Bring the scout commander to me immediately," Ritak ordered. Minutes later, Scout Commander Vax entered the bridge. His uniform was torn, and a fresh scar ran across his snout. "Report," Ritak demanded. "Commander, we approached the human system as ordered," Vax began, his voice strained. "We observed their defenses, which appeared minimal. We captured a small vessel for sampling." He hesitated. "The humans were unexpected." "Explain," Ritak growled. "We captured 6 humans. As protocol dictates, we prepared 2 for immediate consumption and 4 for study. The 2 selected for consumption fought back even when restrained. One killed First Hunter Krell before being subdued." A murmur ran through the bridge. Krell was an experienced hunter who had participated in a dozen first contacts. A prey species killed a Vraxian hunter. Ritak asked in disbelief. "Yes, Commander. The human appeared physically weaker but used the environment in ways we didn't anticipate. The 4 we kept for study managed to break out of their containment. They sabotaged our engine before we recaptured them." Ritak stood, towering over the scout commander. "Are you saying this physically inferior species presented a challenge?" "I'm saying, Commander, that they don't behave like prey. They lack the physical strength of Vraxians, but they adapt quickly and show no fear even when outmatched. They fight differently than any species we've encountered." Ritak turned back to the viewing screen, studying the images of Earth with new interest. The High Council expected this to be a routine hunting expedition, but these humans might provide more than just sustenance. They might provide something the Vraxians hadn't experienced in millennia. A challenge. "Prepare the fleet," Ritak commanded. "We hunt as planned, but with caution. I want to understand these humans before we feast." Captain Allison Rivera stared at the strange message on her screen. After 20 years in the Earth Defense Fleet, she thought nothing could surprise her anymore. She was wrong. "Lieutenant Nichols, verify this signal again," she ordered, running a hand through her short brown hair. Gary Nichols nodded, his fingers moving quickly across his console. The bridge of the U.S. Defiant hummed with tension as everyone waited. "Confirmed, Captain. The signal is coming from just beyond Mars' orbit. It's definitely not human in origin." Rivera stood up from her command chair and approached the main view screen. "First contact," she said quietly. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally found proof they weren't alone. "The translation program says they're requesting a diplomatic meeting," said Communications Officer Linda Bates. "They're calling themselves the Vraxians." "What do we know about their ship?" Rivera asked. "It's massive, Captain," Nichols replied. "Initial scans show it's about 3 times the size of the Defiant, and our long-range sensors detect at least 40 more ships holding position behind Jupiter." Rivera frowned. A fleet that size wasn't just passing through. "Send word to Earth Command. I want every available ship on alert, but make it look routine. I don't want to appear hostile if their intentions are peaceful." "Yes, Captain," Bates replied. "Send back a message accepting their request for a meeting. Suggest the Harmony space station as neutral ground." As the bridge crew carried out her orders, Rivera walked to the side viewport and gazed out at the stars. Humanity had expanded throughout their solar system in the last century, establishing colonies on Mars and Europa, mining operations in the asteroid belt, and research stations around Saturn. But they had never ventured beyond their own system. The technology for faster-than-light travel remained theoretical. "Captain, I'm picking up something odd," Nichols said suddenly. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "The Vraxian ships are scanning our colonies. Not just passive scans. They are using penetrating scans that can identify individual life forms." Rivera returned to her chair. Why would they need that level of detail for a diplomatic meeting? "Maybe it's standard procedure for them," suggested First Officer Dan Kelly. "Or maybe they're counting us," Nichols said quietly. Rivera shot him a sharp look. "Explain." "These scans are cataloging population centers, defense systems, and biological information. It reminds me of how wildlife researchers track animal herds." A chill ran down Rivera's spine. "Keep monitoring. I want to know every move they make." 3 hours later, Rivera stood in the docking bay of Harmony Station, watching as the Vraxian shuttle approached. Behind her stood a delegation of Earth's top diplomats and scientists, all eager to make history. The Vraxian shuttle was sleek and predatory-looking, with sharp angles that reminded Rivera of a shark. As it docked, she straightened her uniform and prepared to greet their visitors. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Rivera's hand instinctively moved closer to her sidearm as the first Vraxian stepped through. The alien was tall, at least 7 feet, with scales that shifted from green to purple under the station lights. Its yellow eyes scanned the reception committee, and Rivera felt as if she were being assessed rather than greeted. Behind the lead Vraxian came 4 others, each carrying what appeared to be ceremonial staffs. "Welcome to Harmony Station," Rivera said, stepping forward. "I'm Captain Allison Rivera of the Earth Defense Fleet." The lead Vraxian tilted its head, studying her. When it spoke, its voice was surprisingly melodic despite the rows of sharp teeth visible with each word. "I am Commander Ritak of the Vraxian Empire. We have traveled far to meet your species." Rivera nodded politely. "We're honored. This is a historic moment for humanity." Ritak's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Yes, historic indeed, for both our peoples." As Rivera led the delegation toward the conference room, she noticed Nichols watching the Vraxians intently. He caught her eye and subtly tapped his wrist communicator twice, their private signal for danger. Rivera maintained her diplomatic smile, but her mind was racing. Something wasn't right, and they were about to find out what. The diplomatic meeting turned into a nightmare within minutes. As Rivera and the Earth delegation sat down at the conference table, Commander Ritak gave a signal. The ceremonial staffs carried by the Vraxian delegates transformed into weapons. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Earth Ambassador William Foster, rising to his feet. Ritak's yellow eyes gleamed. "The meaning is simple. You are prey. We are hunters. This is the natural order of the galaxy." Rivera reacted instantly, drawing her sidearm and shouting, "Defensive positions." She managed to fire once, hitting a Vraxian in the shoulder before being thrown across the room by Ritak's powerful tail. The room erupted into chaos. 3 diplomats fell to Vraxian weapons before security personnel could respond. Rivera crashed into a wall, pain shooting through her body, but she forced herself to get up. "Nichols," she called, spotting her tactical officer engaging one of the aliens. Lieutenant Gary Nichols was using his smaller size to his advantage, ducking under the Vraxian's powerful but slow swings. He managed to jam his stun baton into the alien's side, causing it to roar in pain. "Captain, this way," Nichols shouted, gesturing toward an emergency exit. Rivera grabbed a fallen weapon and covered the retreat of the surviving humans. Defiant, "This is Rivera," she said into her communicator. "We are under attack." The diplomatic meeting was a trap. Launch defensive measures and warn Earth. As Rivera and the survivors fled through the corridors of Harmony Station, alarms blared. The station's AI announced, "Warning. Multiple hostile ships approaching. All personnel evacuate to emergency vessels." Rivera and Nichols led their group to a service shuttle bay. "Get in," Rivera ordered the 6 surviving members of the delegation. "Nichols, can you fly this thing?" "Yes, Captain," he replied, jumping into the pilot's seat. As they detached from the station, Rivera watched in horror as Vraxian warships opened fire on the unprepared human vessels in orbit around Earth. The Defiant was already engaged with 2 enemy ships, its shields flaring under the assault. "Take us to the Defiant," Rivera commanded. "Captain, we're in a maintenance shuttle. We'd be destroyed before we got close," Nichols argued. "Then take us to the asteroid belt. We can hide among the rocks while we figure out our next move." As they fled, Rivera's communicator crackled with desperate messages from Earth and its colonies. The Vraxian attack was happening everywhere at once. Mars colony was under direct assault. Europa base had gone silent. Earth's orbital defenses were being overwhelmed. "They were ready for us," Rivera said grimly. "They studied us, found our weaknesses, and struck when we were most vulnerable." "What do we do now, Captain?" asked Dr. Nathan Klein, one of the 2 scientists who had survived the attack. Rivera stared out at the stars, her mind racing. "We fight back. The Vraxians think we're just prey, but they've never hunted humans before." For 3 days, Rivera's small group hid in the asteroid belt, picking up transmissions where possible. The news was grim. Earth's major cities were under bombardment. The defense fleet had been scattered. Millions were already dead. But there were also signs of resistance. The Defiant had survived its initial encounter and was leading a counterattack near Saturn. Several Vraxian ships had been damaged or destroyed. Earth's ground forces were putting up fierce resistance against landing parties. On the 4th day, Rivera's shuttle detected a damaged Vraxian scout ship drifting nearby. "Nichols, bring us alongside that ship." Quietly. "What are you thinking, Captain?" Nichols asked. "I'm thinking it's time we learn more about our enemy," Rivera replied. "Dr. Klein, you're our xenobiologist. Ready to study some alien technology?" Klein nodded nervously. "Yes, Captain." "Good," Rivera said, checking the charge on her weapon. "Because we're going hunting." The small human team boarded the Vraxian vessel through a damaged airlock. Inside, they found 3 injured Vraxians who had not expected to encounter humans this far from Earth. The battle was brief but violent. When it was over, the humans had control of the scout ship and 2 Vraxian prisoners. For the first time since the attack began, Rivera smiled. Now, she said, looking at her captives, the hunters become the hunted. Dr. Nathan Klein studied the captured Vraxian with fascination. The alien was secured to an examination table inside its own ship, yellow eyes watching Klein's every move. Their biology is remarkable, Klein said to Rivera, who stood nearby with her weapon ready. They're true apex predators. Every part of them evolved for hunting. Claws, teeth, enhanced vision, powerful muscles. Rivera nodded. That explains their attitude. But everyone has weaknesses. Find them. Over the next 2 days, Klein worked tirelessly. He took samples, ran tests using the Vraxian medical equipment, and attempted to communicate with the prisoners. The second Vraxian had died from its injuries, making their remaining captive even more valuable. Nichols, meanwhile, worked with Linda Bates to understand the alien ship's systems. They managed to access the ship's database, though much of it remained incomprehensible. "Captain, I think I've found something," Klein called excitedly on the third day. "Their hearing range is much narrower than ours. They can't detect high-frequency sounds at all." "How does that help us?" Rivera asked. "We could potentially communicate without them hearing us. Or better yet, we could use high-frequency sound as a weapon. It wouldn't harm them directly, but it would be completely outside their experience. They wouldn't know what was happening." Rivera's eyes lit up. Like how dogs react to whistles humans can't hear. They'd be confused, disoriented. "Exactly," Klein said. "And there's more. Their scales provide excellent protection against energy weapons, but they're surprisingly vulnerable to certain bacteria common on Earth. Their immune systems have never encountered them. So we have 2 potential advantages," Rivera summarized. "Sound they can't hear and bacteria they can't fight." While they worked, Rivera maintained contact with other surviving human forces. The Defiant, under First Officer Kelly's command, had gathered several Earth vessels behind Saturn's rings. Admiral Peter Morrison had established a hidden base in the Kuiper Belt beyond Neptune, coordinating what remained of Earth's fleet. "We need to get this information to Morrison," Rivera decided. "Nichols, can you pilot this ship to the Kuiper Belt?" "I think so, Captain," Nichols replied. "I figured out most of the navigation systems, but we'll need to be careful. The Vraxians will be looking for their missing scout." They set course for Morrison's base, traveling slowly to avoid detection. Along the way, they intercepted Vraxian communications. Klein and Bates worked together to translate them. "They're confused, Captain," Bates reported. "Several of their ships have been damaged by guerrilla attacks. They expected us to surrender once our major defenses fell." Rivera smiled grimly. "They don't understand humans very well." When they finally reached Morrison's base, Rivera was shocked to find over 30 Earth vessels gathered there. The crews cheered when they saw the captured Vraxian ship with Earth markings hastily painted on its hull. Admiral Morrison, a stern man with gray hair, greeted Rivera personally. "Captain, your survival is a welcome surprise, and you've brought us a prize." Rivera quickly briefed Morrison on everything they had learned. The Admiral listened intently, especially to Klein's discoveries about Vraxian weaknesses. "This is exactly what we needed," Morrison said when she finished. "We've been fighting blind, using only hit-and-run tactics. Now we can plan a real counterattack." He led Rivera to a holographic display showing the solar system. "The Vraxians have established bases on Mars and have ships orbiting Earth, but they're spreading themselves thin, trying to hunt down our scattered forces. Classic predator behavior," Klein commented. "They're used to prey that runs and hides, not prey that fights back." Morrison nodded. "And that's their mistake. Captain Rivera, I'm promoting you to acting commander. I want you to lead our first major offensive." Rivera studied the display, noting the positions of Vraxian ships. "We'll need to coordinate with the resistance forces on Earth." "Already happening," Morrison said. "A scientist named Olivia Washington has been leading a group developing new weapons. Your Dr. Klein should work with her on deploying bacterial agents." Rivera straightened her uniform. "When do we start?" Admiral. Morrison's eyes were cold. As soon as we finish adapting your captured ship's technology to our vessels, the Vraxians came to hunt humans. It's time they learned that on Earth, sometimes the prey hunts back. Commander Ritak paced the bridge of his flagship, his tail swishing in agitation. The hunt was not going as planned. 3 more Vraxian ships had been lost in the last Earth day, bringing the total to 11 vessels destroyed or disabled. "How is this happening?" he demanded. "These humans have inferior technology and no natural defenses." Officer Drek approached cautiously. "Commander, we've analyzed the latest attacks. The humans are using our own tactics against us. They're striking quickly from hiding places, then disappearing before we can respond." Ritak snarled. "Find them. I want every asteroid, every moon, every piece of debris scanned." "There's something else," Drek added. "Our biology team reports that many of our warriors are becoming ill after direct contact with humans or their environments. Some unknown pathogen is affecting them." Before Ritak could respond, a communication officer called out, "Commander, we're detecting a large energy signature from Earth's moon. It appears they're gathering their remaining ships there." Ritak's eyes narrowed. "Finally, send half our fleet to crush them. No survivors." In the hidden base beneath Europa's ice, Acting Commander Alison Rivera watched the Vraxian fleet split up on the holographic display. "They took the bait," she said to Admiral Morrison and her team. "The decoy signals from the moon worked. Half their fleet is moving away from Earth." Morrison nodded grimly. "Begin Phase 2. Rivera turned to Communications Officer Bates. "Send the signal to all resistance groups on Earth. Operation Thunderclap begins now." Across Earth, hidden human resistance fighters activated devices developed by Olivia Washington. These devices emitted high-frequency sound waves that humans couldn't hear, but that created chaos in Vraxian landing parties. The aliens clutched their heads in confusion, unable to identify the source of their discomfort. Simultaneously, Dr. Klein's team released specially engineered bacteria into Vraxian base locations. The microbes were harmless to humans, but caused severe reactions in Vraxian biology. From Europa, Rivera led a fleet of 20 Earth ships, now modified with technology from the captured Vraxian scout. They approached Earth from the dark side, avoiding detection until they were in striking range. "All ships, weapons hot," Rivera ordered. "Target their command vessels first." The Earth fleet emerged from hiding and opened fire on the surprised Vraxians. Their first volley took down 2 enemy ships before the aliens could respond. "They're disorganized," Nichols reported from his tactical station. "The ground attacks and the bacteria must be working." The space battle was fierce. Earth ships, smaller and less powerful, darted between the massive Vraxian vessels, firing precisely at weak points identified by Klein's research. The Vraxians fought back savagely, destroying 3 human vessels in minutes. But the tide was turning. The Vraxian warriors, used to easy victories against terrified prey, found themselves facing an enemy that showed no fear. Humans fought with desperate creativity, using their environment in ways the Vraxians never considered. On the Vraxian flagship, Ritak realized they had been tricked. It was a trap. "Recall our ships from the moon immediately." But it was too late. The battle around Earth had become a chaotic melee, with humans using the debris of destroyed ships as cover and weapons. The fleet sent to the moon was too far away to help quickly. "Commander," Officer Drek reported, "we're losing ship after ship, and reports from the ground forces indicate many warriors are too sick to fight." Ritak slammed his fist on his command console. "How? How can prey do this to us?" Rivera's ship, the renamed Defiant II, broke through the Vraxian line and targeted Ritak's flagship directly. "Target their engine core," she ordered. "Fire everything we have." The Vraxian flagship shuddered under the assault. Alarms blared across its bridge as systems failed. "Commander, we must retreat and regroup," Drek urged. "This is not a battle we can win today." Ritak wanted to refuse, but even he could see the truth. For the first time in known Vraxian history, a fleet commander gave the order. All ships, strategic withdrawal. We will return with reinforcements. As the Vraxian ships limped away from Earth, cheers erupted across the human fleet. They had won their first major victory. But Rivera didn't join the celebration. She knew the Vraxians would return, stronger and more prepared. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "But now they know we're not just prey. We're predators too." 2 months after the Battle of Earth, humans had pushed the Vraxians out of the entire solar system. Now, it was time to take the fight to enemy territory. Commander Rivera stood on the bridge of the U.S. Vengeance, a former Vraxian warship rebuilt with human modifications. Around her, a fleet of 30 vessels prepared to enter the jump point that would take them to Vraxian space. "All ships report ready, Commander," said Lieutenant Nichols, now her second in command. Rivera nodded. "Then let's make history. This is the first human expedition beyond our solar system, and we're going in hot." The fleet entered the jump point, experiencing a strange stretching sensation as they traveled faster than light. When they emerged, they found themselves in a star system with 3 planets. Vraxian outposts dotted the area. "They're scrambling their defenses," Nichols reported. "They didn't expect us to follow them home." Rivera smiled grimly. "That's their problem. They still think like predators who assume prey will only run or hide." She opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, commence Operation Payback. Free any captive species you find." The human fleet struck quickly, overwhelming the unprepared Vraxian defenses. On the 3rd planet, they discovered thousands of aliens in containment facilities, members of various species captured by the Vraxians for food or slave labor. Dr. Klein supervised their release. One species in particular, the Tellurians, proved to be valuable allies. They were small blue-skinned beings with 6 fingers on each hand and large eyes. "Our people have been hunted by the Vraxians for generations," explained Keth, their leader. "We are skilled in technology, but physically weaker than them. We could never fight back effectively." "You can now," Klein told him. "Join us. With your technology and our fighting spirit, we can end the Vraxian threat forever." Meanwhile, on the Vraxian homeworld, Commander Ritak faced the High Council. The 7 eldest and most powerful Vraxians looked down at him with contempt. "You have failed," hissed High Overlord Zex. "For the first time in our history, prey has invaded Vraxian space." Ritak stood tall despite his disgrace. "These humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They think differently. They fight differently." "Excuses," sneered another council member. "You will be removed from command." "That would be a mistake," Ritak argued. "I have faced these humans. I understand them better than anyone. They combine the cunning of prey with the aggression of predators. To defeat them, we must understand them." High Overlord Zex considered this. "Very well. You will have one final chance. Take our reserve fleet and destroy these humans before they advance further. Fail, and your life is forfeit." Back in the conquered system, Rivera met with her officers and their new Tellurian allies. Intelligence officer Jack Martinez, who had been working with resistance fighters on Earth, had joined them via the 2nd Fleet. "The Vraxians are gathering a massive force," Martinez reported. "Our scouts have detected hundreds of ships moving toward their homeworld." "They're scared," Rivera said. "They've never faced prey that fought back before." "We're more than prey now," Nichols pointed out. "We're hunters too." Keth, the Tellurian leader, stepped forward. "My people have shared star charts showing all known Vraxian territories. There are at least 6 other species being held captive across their empire." Rivera studied the maps. "Then we free them all. Each species they've hunted becomes part of our alliance." "The Vraxians have ruled through fear for thousands of years," Dr. Klein said. "Their entire society is built around being the apex predator. What happens when they're not at the top anymore?" Rivera's expression was determined. "We're about to find out." Over the next weeks, the human-led alliance liberated 3 more star systems and freed 4 captive species. Each joined the fight against their former tormentors. The alliance fleet grew larger and stronger with each victory. But the final battle was approaching. The Vraxian Reserve Fleet, led by Commander Ritak, was massive, 5 times the size of the alliance forces, and Ritak was studying humans carefully, learning their tactics, preparing countermeasures against their bacterial weapons and sound devices. As the alliance prepared for the coming confrontation, Rivera received a direct transmission from Ritak himself. "Commander Rivera," the Vraxian said, his yellow eyes intense, "before we meet in battle, I wish to understand. Why do you fight so fiercely when you could simply hide? No prey species has ever behaved as yours does." Rivera stared back at the alien predator. "That's simple, Commander Ritak. On Earth, we were never just prey. We were predators too. And now you're about to find out what it feels like to be hunted." The Alliance fleet approached the Vraxian homeworld with caution. Rivera knew this would be the hardest fight yet. Intelligence reports indicated that Ritak had prepared special defenses based on what he had learned about human tactics. "They've set up sound dampening fields around their key installations," Nichols reported, "and they're using protective suits against our bacterial weapons." Rivera nodded. "They're learning. But so are we." She turned to Keth, and the other alien allies gathered on her bridge. "That's why we brought friends." The plan was complex but bold. While the main fleet engaged the Vraxian Armada head-on, smaller teams would infiltrate the homeworld. Dr. Klein had developed a new weapon, a modified version of the bacteria that would affect the Vraxians even through their protective gear. "All ships, battle positions," Rivera ordered. "Remember, we're fighting not just for Earth, but for all species that have suffered under Vraxian rule." The space around the Vraxian homeworld erupted in battle. Hundreds of ships exchanged fire, creating a light show visible from the planet's surface. The Alliance vessels were outnumbered but fought with coordination and creativity that confused the more regimented Vraxian forces. On his flagship, Ritak watched the battle unfold. He had studied human tactics carefully and prepared accordingly. But something was wrong. The humans weren't using their usual guerrilla approach. "They're engaging us directly," he said to Officer Drek. "Why?" His question was answered when sensors detected multiple small ships slipping past their defensive line. "They're heading for the surface," Drek exclaimed. Ritak realized the truth. "It's a diversion. Redirect half our forces to protect the capital city." But it was too late. The infiltration team, led by Jack Martinez and Olivia Washington, had already landed. With them were representatives from each allied species, each bringing unique skills to the mission. "The Central Command Complex is 2 kilometers ahead," Martine said, checking his scanner. "Heavy defenses, but we have surprise on our side." Washington nodded. "Let's move. We have 20 minutes before they realize we're here." The team moved swiftly through the outskirts of the Vraxian capital, a city of towering spires and arching bridges. Few civilians saw them. Most were in shelters due to the space battle above. In orbit, Rivera's ship took heavy damage. Engine core hit. A crewman reported. "We're losing power." "Reroute all auxiliary power to weapons," Rivera ordered. "We need to hold them just a little longer." Nichols pointed to the tactical display. "Commander, Ritak's flagship is approaching. He's coming straight for us." Rivera smiled grimly. "Good. Let him come." On the surface, Martinez's team reached the command complex. The Tellurians used their technical skills to disable the security systems, while warriors from the Grulthak species, massive, rock-skinned beings, broke through the physical barriers. "Released the bacterial agent," Martinez ordered once they reached the central air circulation system. Washington activated the device Dr. Klein had created. Dispersal in progress. It should affect every Vraxian in the complex within minutes. In space, Ritak's flagship and Rivera's Vengeance exchanged devastating fire. Both ships were crippled, drifting toward each other. "Prepare for boarding action," Rivera told her crew. "This ends today, one way or another." When the ships connected, Rivera led the boarding party herself. They fought their way through Vraxian defenders, who were already starting to show signs of the bacterial agent's effects as it spread from the planet below. Finally, Rivera reached the bridge and found herself face to face with Ritak. The Vraxian commander stood tall despite being weakened by the bacteria. "You've won," he said simply. "For the first time in our history, the Vraxian Empire has been defeated." Rivera kept her weapon trained on him. "This isn't about winning. It's about ending the hunt. No species should live in fear of becoming another's meal." Ritak studied her with his yellow eyes. "You could destroy us completely. Why don't you?" "Because we're not like you," Rivera replied. "Humans learned long ago that cooperation is stronger than domination. That's a lesson your people need to learn." On the planet below, Martinez's team had taken control of the planetary defense systems and government complex. The High Council was captured, ending Central Vraxian authority. Rivera looked out at the homeworld through the flagship's viewport. "The hunt is over, Commander Ritak. Now we build something new." 1 year after the fall of the Vraxian Empire, representatives from 27 species gathered on a neutral space station to sign the Galactic Confederation Charter. Commander Rivera, now Admiral Rivera, stood at the center of the assembly. "Today marks a new beginning," she said to the gathered delegates. "For too long, the galaxy lived under the rule of predators. Today, we establish a union of equals, where no species hunts another." The signing ceremony was broadcast throughout former Vraxian space. On hundreds of worlds, beings who had once lived in fear watched as their representatives took their places in the new galactic order. But not everyone was pleased with the outcome. Many humans and other species had wanted to punish the Vraxians more severely for their centuries of hunting. Some called for their complete destruction. "We can't become what we fought against," Rivera had argued in countless debates. "The Vraxians need to learn a different way to live, not be exterminated." Her solution was controversial but effective. The Vraxians were confined to their homeworld and 3 colony planets. Their military was disbanded. Most importantly, Dr. Klein had developed a synthetic protein that satisfied their biological need to hunt and consume other sentient beings. In a secure facility on the Vraxian homeworld, Rivera met with Ritak. The former commander had become the liaison between his people and the Confederation. "My people are struggling to adapt," Ritak admitted as they walked through a garden. He looked thinner than before, his scales less vibrant. 10,000 years of being the galaxy's apex predator is not easily forgotten. "Change is never easy," Rivera replied. "But it's necessary. Your people can contribute much to the Confederation if you embrace cooperation instead of domination." Ritak stopped and looked at her. "Why did you spare us? After all we did to your people and others, you could have destroyed us completely." Rivera considered her answer carefully. "On Earth, humans were both predator and prey throughout our evolution. We hunted other animals, but we were also hunted by them. We learned that the strongest societies aren't built on fear, but on mutual benefit." "A difficult lesson for Vraxians," Ritak said, "but not impossible. Your younger generation is already adapting. I've seen them working alongside Tellurians and humans, learning new ways to think." Later that day, Rivera visited the new Confederation Academy, where young members of all species trained together. In one classroom, she found Vraxian youths studying alongside humans, Tellurians, and others. Dr. Klein was teaching cynobiology. "The diversity of life is what makes our galaxy remarkable," he was saying. "Each species brings unique strengths and perspectives." Rivera smiled as she watched a young Vraxian helping a human student understand a complex problem. This was the future she had fought for. That evening, she met with her old crew. Nichols, now a captain with his own ship, raised a glass. "To the Admiral, who turned hunters into allies. And to those who didn't live to see this day," Rivera added, thinking of the millions lost in the war. "What's next?" asked Olivia Washington, who had become the Confederation's chief science officer. Exploration, Rivera replied. The Vraxians mapped only 20% of our galaxy. There's so much more to discover, hopefully peaceful species we can welcome into the Confederation. Jack Martinez, now head of intelligence, nodded, and watching for any signs that old habits are returning. Some Vraxians still resist the new order. They'll learn, Rivera said confidently, just as we all have. As the gathering ended, Rivera stood alone at a viewport, looking out at the stars. The war had cost so much, but it had also united the galaxy in ways never before imagined. Species that had once been prey now stood as equals. Even the Vraxians were finding a place in this new order. A message arrived from Earth. The first Vraxian delegation had been welcomed to the human homeworld, a historic moment of reconciliation. Rivera smiled. The hunters had become neighbors. The galaxy had changed forever, all because humans had shown that being prey didn't mean you couldn't fight back, and that being victorious didn't mean you had to become a predator yourself.